Hi, today we are talking about some long-term body composition management tools. This is very much for people who are not interested in weighing themselves on the scale. They are no longer interested in tracking their macros or tracking their calories. If that's the case, keep watching. So there's a particular phase of nutrition where everything is numbers, numbers, numbers. Everything is getting managed because what gets measured gets managed, yada, yada, yada. You learn what a calorie is, you download the apps, you start to understand your macros. And, for many people, this phase is not only helpful, but sometimes even necessary, as it creates a lot of awareness where there previously wasn't any. But, what is less talked about is that the people who are able to maintain their body composition progress rarely stay in this highly numerical phase forever. Number one, it's exhausting to keep tracking things. And number two, it's actually not necessary. So today we're going to be talking about some long-term body composition management tools that don't require you to continuously weigh yourself, that don't require you to continuously track your calories and stuff like that. So a lot of this long-term management success comes down to understanding your internal hunger signals. If you want to rebuild your internal hunger system, your internal awareness, here's what I would recommend. Number one, if you haven't heard me talk about this before, I would recommend that you find some anchor meals for yourself. I'm gonna go ahead and just write that down over here, okay? So anchor meals. Anchor meals are meals within set time ranges, usually within like a 2-hour time window that will meet a protein and calorie minimum. You heard that right, a minimum. There is a guide in the description below and you can download it for free. It's essentially 2 bare minimum meals before 4 p.m. per day, which meet the following. So 1, we want that meal to be around 35 grams of protein, about 70 grams of carbs, and 20 grams of fats. And this essentially calculates out to approximately a minimum of 600 calories per meal. By the way, these minimums are just based on averages that have worked for many of my own clients in the past. Obviously, your minimums can be higher if you are a larger person. The second requirement for this anchor meal is that it must actually be something that you genuinely look forward to eating. Otherwise, you won't eat it. And so by ensuring that you have an absolute bare minimum of 1,200 calories before 4 p.m., this leaves plenty of caloric room for your choice of dinner and also like a midday snack as well. Again, if you're no longer in a dieting phase, we're not trying to eat the bare minimum anymore. So see if you can establish some anchor meals for yourself and continue to build from that. Number two, what makes long-term much easier is to have a repetition of similar foods. So repetition of similar doesn't have to be perfectly identical, but having similar foods. I think that there is like a very strong cultural bias towards variety all the time. You have a million choices, you can customize in any which way. And I think that technically there's nothing wrong with that, but it just, again, we wanna make this as easy as possible. So if you have similar foods, or sometimes even if you have identical foods, it becomes a lot easier to kind of just remember, okay, well, this has a good amount of protein, let me just keep on repeating that over time. And when you have a few full meals that you return to regularly, such as like breakfast that you don't have to think about, or maybe like lunches that become more automatic, you remove a significant amount of decision making from your day. And this allows more brain real estate dedicated towards things that you're actually trying to accomplish with this, new and improved nutrition that you have. What I like to do is have some larger, flexible kind of base ingredients in the back of my head, not necessarily beholden to a certain time of day. So what do I mean by that? Oats. I rely heavily on using oats as, savory dinner congee with fried egg, sometimes sweetened with sugar and drizzled with like tahini and olive oil. Sometimes I'll have oats with frozen spinach and chicken sausage. It's like having that oats is very helpful to give me other ideas that can like shoot out of it. Another idea, I often find myself defaulting to like different types of sandwiches. As long as I have the idea of like a sandwich in my head as this repetition item, I can pretty much make any kind of sandwich I want depending on what's available. The key, again, is to choose stable ideas that are versatile and flexible enough so that there's less boredom between days. There is some degree of knowing how to cook as an adult and assemble food that's required. I would actually highly recommend Internet Shaquille for great beginner cooking knowledge. He's taught me a lot about how to think about food and cooking in a more flexible way so that I am not beholden ever to classic, gross Tupperware meal prep. I don't think anyone should have that in their life personally. Thirdly, you need to establish the idea of proactive nutrition. Proactive nutrition. Believe it or not, nutrition is not just about gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. You will need to start to view your nutrition as a way to proactively take care of yourself so that you can do the things that you want to do. This means, for example, that just because you're not super hungry after 5 hours of not eating, it doesn't mean that you should be skipping lunch because you're inundated with work emails, right? You should eat something small or perhaps half of what you've prepared so that you can think clearer and make better life decisions. This is being proactive, even though you're not hungry, right? This also means that you should eat well on days when you're not training so that you can then train better later. By the way, eat well in this specific instance means that you are eating enough carbs on your non-training days. If this is triggering something in you, then this message is probably specifically for you. Eventually, the final goal of all of this is to get to a place where each meal is kind of almost serving a slightly different purpose. Sometimes the meal before a workout is more simple so that it's easier to digest. Other times your dinner is more interesting because you have the time to cook something more elaborate. Hopefully it becomes second nature to simply ask yourself, how do I want to feel after eating this? And what is the purpose of this meal without needing to think too hard? But of course, this takes time and practice. If this video was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up so that I can continue to create free content. If you want more free resources, please leave your email in the newsletter link below, and I will see you guys in the next one.